Hello, Professor Beach. My name is Lexton Bunting, and I want to be presenting the sociological theories of social movements for SOS 515, Social Change and Development. So starting off, we have an introduction and overview. So social movements for same-sex marriage. This is what we are going to be covering during this presentation, and it's the social movements for same-sex marriage has been evident for nearly a century. This presentation will cover a comparison of Sweden and the United States in same-sex marriage movements, sociological theories, and the role of social institutions. As a brief overview for sociological theories, you have structural functionalism, which promotes and inspires cohesion and stability. Then you have conflict theory, which we can see from Karl Marx, which social movements arise from oppression of dominant classes. And then Weber's conflict perspective of the cultural shifts that drive social movements. And then you have Terrain's perspective, lastly, that social movements implement new cultural values seen in the social systems. When comparing the United States and Sweden, I would view the United States in the perspective of Marx's conflict theory. Just because there is some resistance against cultural, historical, and religious oppression, right? We do see the Stonewall uprising in 1969 and even some other ones in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. With Sweden, I would take the Weber and Terrain perspective as cultural collectivism and political support drove same-sex marriage legalization. With Sweden's timeline, we can see the registered partnerships being legalized for same-sex couples in 1995, same-sex adoption in 2002, and marriage in 2009, which, as you can see in the United States, it's going to be the federal legalization in 2015. The reasons for this social movement in the United States was because of that resistance to religious influence and the need for legal equality. So, sociological researchers have found that there's been no major backlash post-legalization, and we also see increased marriage rates and decreased divorce rates going after that 2015 legalization. But with Sweden, they were focused more on just going with the cultural flow of things, as to say. So there was early cultural support and political support, and the social changes actually began in the 1990s. So like I said, registered partnerships brought economic and family benefits for same-sex couples, but there has been higher suicide rates among same-sex couples and higher divorce rates. The main contributing factors of social change, especially with these social movements for same-sex marriage, has to do with the uprising and protest, like I stated, that started the public discourse. Then you have the liberalization of social institution that fueled support through education, processes and systems. Then you have religious liberalization with non-Protestant denominations. And then a couple other things, such as the legalization of same-sex marriage in Massachusetts in 2004 that shows the political aspect. With Sweden, the same-sex relations became legal in 1944, creating that cultural foundation that we see today in Scandinavia. Legalization lag due to family, religious, and economic institutions. We call this cultural lag. We can definitely see it in those institutions there. And then in the 1990s, that movement accelerated acceptance because of the legalization of registered partnerships for same-sex couples. Finally, we want to dive into the social institutions' relationships to social movements. So in the United States, like I said, we do see that liberalization of education, religion, and politics that increased the support needed to start that political push for that social movement. We also see growth in Christian denominations supporting same-sex marriage, especially in the non-Protestant area. And then education actually improved public acceptance as our educational attainment and educational availability improved within the United States. With Sweden, we see that family dynamics played the key role in legalization. A lot of Swedish citizens thought that with same-sex marriage legalization, we would see an increased support in long-lasting relationships. So political support actually in Sweden influenced other Scandinavians such as Denmark and Norway. And then most recently, the Church of Sweden supported same-sex marriage in 2011. So with this conclusion, I want to highlight four main points. Theories do explain same-sex marriage movements in different cultural contexts. The U.S. faced institutional resistance while Sweden has that early political and cultural support. Then social institutions played a crucial role in influencing public acceptance and legislation. And then lastly, the evolution of same-sex marriage rights highlights the dynamic relationships between that social institution, or those social institutions such as education, religion, and politics, with social movements. And finally, I do want to touch on the references that I used here, but you will see those more in my Word document that I will include with this presentation. So I want to thank you for your time, Dr. Beach, and please let me know if you do have any questions.